Yeah, for the first part of the presentation, I could not see anything that Barb was talking about. When Jeannie switched, I could see Jeannie's screen, and then when they switched back, then I could see Barb's screen. So
Oh,
I never saw whatever the 8-minute video was, or I mean, I can watch the recording, I guess, later.
oh, sorry about all of that.
And Kendra was trying to help me. She's my tech expert, but
Okay.
I just have an iPad, so I'm not sure how I'm going to download unless we end up using Kendra's laptop
Okay, well, that's
to get the like Discord, right? The Discord platform has to be downloaded to a home computer. Is that what I'm understanding?
yes, I discovered that when I was just using an iPad to do this, it didn't work. It could not get
Okay.
everything.
Yeah, and the
So-
computer that I have, it that I'm working from like during the day is a work computer, and I can't download anything to that. So
okay.
that's just my
Well,
my
yes.
work thing. So we'll see if we can use Kendra's. I don't even know when the first tournament is.
Yeah. Well, I think that's something that, and with everybody, I think it's something, if all you have is an iPad, that is something that you should take up with high tech kids, because I discovered in a lot of these things, it just doesn't work that well.
Okay.
So, but I think we'll start with the core values. Start with core values now. I just like to start by saying that I personally believe that the number one priority of any type of judge or referee is to make the team feel comfortable, so that they can do their best at the tournament in what they're doing. And I want to reiterate the major differences that were discussed with judging for this. First of all, there is no separate judging for core values. The core value judge will sit and listen in with both the project judge and the design and programming judges. And there's going to be that room switch that they talked about for 5 minutes. Now, please keep in mind that 5 minutes may sound like a lot of time, but if you have like 6 or 7 kids on a team and you asked a question and each one of those kids took about 45 seconds to a minute to answer that question, that's the end of your 5 minutes. So you really have to think about what would be a really good question to ask, or something that you haven't gotten at, because 5 minutes really isn't going to be a whole lot of time to ask 2 or 3, questions. You might get one good question in. So that's kind of how the judging goes. And I hope people understand this new way with the core values judging. If you're a new core values judge, you're in great shape because you don't really have the old way to think about things. But for people who have been doing core values, it is quite a major switch. I'm quite excited about it. High Tech Kids has always talked about that research and robot are what we do, and core values is how we do it. So I think observing teams in kind of a more real life situation of presenting their project or talking about their robot and their programming is much more realistic than doing a core values activity, which sometimes was kind of artificial. So
in a breakout session.
Pardon?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. And so I think that I am really excited about the change. I think it will be easier to kind of implement and see how it's going once we go back to live presentations instead of the virtual world. But that is a major change that got laid down on top of virtual tournaments. So right now I want to try to do a screen share. And I'm not sure it's going to do it. Barb, all I'm seeing is you on my screen. And it's not bringing up the rubrics that I.
Okay, do you want me to share them?
There, it just
Okay.
brought them up.
Okay, good.
So we'll spend most of our time looking at the core values rubrics, although we already did that. It might be helpful during this observation if we find out we have time. And like we said, this is kind of a moving target this year as to what will work and what doesn't. But it might be helpful at the beginning of the day to sit down or to go into a chat room with your fellow judges in your division and ask them if they have an idea of what types of questions they're going to be asking the team, because then you can kind of know ahead of time what may be observed and stuff and be able to fit it into the categories of core values and kind of know ahead of time what to listen for. Of course, it will be much easier when you are with the project judge to get questions in, because it will just be you and the project judge. When we're in design and programming, there will actually be 3 judges sitting in the room, and it will be much more difficult to throw in some questions during that judging. So if you think that if something has gotten missed, you might want to ask it during that midterm session, or when the other judges are switching rooms, or there might be some time at the end where you can throw in one question or something. But during project, there will probably be more time to ask questions. But as was stated earlier, make sure your questions are kind of pertinent to the subject that's being discussed, either project or design and programming. So as you can see, there's not a whole lot to the core values sheet. There are the 6 core values and just the beginning, developing, accomplished, and exceeds across the top. In the right under the team name and everything, and make sure you have those correct with the team so that you're judging and scoring for the correct team. There are these new awards: Breakthrough Award, Rising All-Star, and Motivate. I kind of think of the Breakthrough Award as a team that is scoring somewhat relatively well, but not quite to the exceeds level. If you think of like a state tournament, if you are an experienced judge, and we have those teams that score kind of like consistently across the board, but don't quite make it into the award, the winners of the different award categories, this might be a place to have to check them off for that. Rising All-Star, we see a lot of new teams. I don't know how much we'll see new teams this year with the lower level of teams, but a lot of times you'll see that team where it's all first year. But when they tell you that they're all first year, your first thought is like, wow, they understand exactly what it is that needs to all be done, but they just haven't gotten to that point yet. And I really expect them in the future to make large, big improvements. The Motivate is one that in the past, a lot of times has been given by the referees. It's more of the, we used to call it the Spirit Award, and it was done on the referee floor. This time, I hesitate to talk about a team that's all rah-rah, and because some teams just are not like that. Some teams are very quiet, and they're not like laughing and joking all the time, but they really have an enthusiasm for what they're doing in regards to First Lego League. And I think that shows through, even if they are not, a real rah-rah team. So those are the 3 new awards. Those should be discussed with your other judges in your division, because they also can nominate a team for this award, but you're the only one who can put it on your rubrics. It is only listed on the core values rubric. So if one of the other judges wants to nominate a team for that, that'll get missed out if they don't tell the core values judge and have them mark it on the core values place. So as we go down the team, or as we go down the rubrics, as was stated, first has listed 1, 2, 3, 4, and as you know, we are going to use 1 through 12. So, and that was already explained. So we'll just go through the discovery ones, or through the different core values. Discovery, team explored new skills and ideas. So while the project judge is asking about how did you come up with your project, what else did you do, and while the design and programming judge are asking about how did you build your robot, what skills did you learn, how did you learn how to code, I kind of look at this as in the past. Are they looking across the board at all 3 aspects of FLL? Are they concentrating not only on the robot, the design and the programming, but have they also been looking at the skills that they learn from core values? The skills that will be the lifelong skills that they'll take with them even after first Lego League. So that's what I look at this one as. Innovation, the team used creativity and persistence to solve problems. This too can be viewed a lot, I believe, especially during the design and programming award, because they'll talk about, well, we did this and then we discovered that that didn't work, so we had to come up with this new attachment. And then I think the kids talk about that a lot during design and programming when they talk about building their robots or trying to figure out new programming techniques. And also they would talk about it during their project when they would see if they came up with a particular skill that they were going to do or particular project, how did they have to, when they looked at it, to see, does this really work in the real world? Then how did they get more creative to deal with that problem? Impact, the team applied what they learned to improve their world. This is very much one that will come out in the project judging, because they'll have to talk about, they're going to have to pick, their world may be their community, it may be their school, it may be their community, it may be their city, but when they pick what they're going to do for their replay project, their solution should help the community, the world that they have chosen. So I think that will very much come out. You'll be able to observe that. Inclusion. Now, inclusion, teamwork, and fun, I look at those as you'll be observing how the team interacts with each other while they are doing their judging. This may be difficult when we're doing this virtually, because we don't know if the teams will be together, if they'll be in separate rooms away from each other. So for this year, these may be difficult. Once we get back into seeing teams all in one room together, I think it's a little easier. But think about even in a virtual world, if they're all unmuted and everything, are they talking over one another? Are they giving encouragement to each other? Are they, those are the types of things. These may be questions that you have to, that may come in during the midterm, You might want to ask, did you have a conflict that had to be resolved? And how did you do that among the team members? Is everyone contributing? This can certainly also be shown in a virtual world too. One of the comments that I write a lot for core values is on the great job is you weren't talking over one another. But on the other side, I like to, sometimes it may be, you need to develop a way for everyone to participate. Sometimes you have a team that has experienced members in it, but they've gotten in 3 or 4 new members over the past year. Did the experienced members kind of dominate the judging session? Or did they help the inexperienced members to also participate, and so forth and so on. So these are the ones where sometimes it's not so much specific questions that are asked, but it's the way they're conducting themselves during the judging session. And once again, I'd like to reiterate under the fun, in the old rubrics, we used to have the team spirit. I don't remember what it was exactly called, but I like to reiterate again, some teams just aren't a whole lot of rah, rah, ooh, laughing, giggling, that they're just not like that. They're quieter, but that doesn't mean they're not having fun. And I think you can see if they show an enthusiasm for what they're learning, and this enthusiasm comes out by how they're speaking about what they're doing, not necessarily just having fun amongst each other. I think that is where it comes into the area of fun. Then if you go across the top with beginning, developing, accomplished, and exceeds, I guess there I would say I look at in judging where to put these, because all they say are minimal examples observed across the team, some examples observed across the team. I look at it as kind of 2 parts. It's how many of the team members are demonstrating these core values, and then how far are they going with the core values. Maybe all of them learned a little bit of programming, but maybe all of them learned so they're more beginning. They all did, but they all concentrated on one thing. But maybe all of them learned programming, design, leadership skills, and project. So then that would really go up into the accomplished and exceeds, because it went across the board with all the people, and they went deeper into the core values than just kind of skimming the surface of the core values. So that's how I view that. And as Jeannie was saying, even though it says explain how the team exceeds, for there, I would like to think of that box as more of a next steps. To reach the next steps, this is what I would suggest for you to work on. And you can do the same thing down in, I like to use the great job and the think about as kind of going hand in hand. I like to say, boy, you did a great job. I used the example before of you did a great job. You didn't talk over one another. But in order to move up to the next step, think about how can you develop a method for everyone to participate? How could you have done that? So maybe you weren't rude to one another and you didn't interrupt one another. You did a great job on that. But now you need to sit and talk about, what can we do to encourage everyone on our team to participate? So that's what I kind of look at for those. I think it's going to be very important, at least in my observation. I have to keep track along the way. And I don't know, I am not as technically skilled. I don't think I'll be able to be doing the scores at the same time while we're looking at the judging. So I personally prefer the method of using either blank rubric sheets for each team, or they have judges' notes in the prep pack, which Jeannie said follow along with the 1 through 12 scoring, if that helps. I need to scribble down the comments as I go along. This will be much easier because when we were in sessions where we had to ask questions and then write right afterwards, this time you'll be mostly observing, so hopefully it'll be a little easier to scribble down the comments and everything. But I think it's good, it will be good to keep track of those along the way, and don't forget to enter the scores as you kind of go along when you get the downtimes. Don't leave that all to the end. And as they say, they want lots of comments, but also it might be difficult to leave all comments towards the end too. You might be typing for a very long time. So be sure to use some of those downtimes. And with core values judging, you'll only be seeing half the teams. So at the end, you'll get together with your other core values judge. And you may want to do this, not wait till the very end. You might want to do it kind of halfway through and say, gee, I've got some really powerhouse teams here. What are you seeing in yours? Do you have, and they may say, well, I've had quite a bit of beginning teams. You're going to have to deliberate between who is going to get the core value awards without having seen half the teams. You'll have to rely on each other to talk about your scoring issues with that, if that makes sense to people. I think Barb pointed out in the prep pack, there was a script that talked about where you could get the other, where you could look for some of the core values. If you have your script with you, or your prep pack with you, or you can just kind of jot these down. I added a few that weren't in there that I think could come out. So under the innovative project question and answer, under the create question, I think that could also apply to the innovation core value and the impact. You're asking them, what have you been using to explain and share with others? So definitely impact on how that's going to improve the world. And describe the steps that you took. That's definitely an innovation thing. Did they use creativity and persistence? Did they go through that engineering design process and keep, change one thing, go through and fix it, test it, look it out, keep going. Under iterate, I would say that also would go with the impact core value. Did you make any changes or improvements? So how did they, improvements after sharing? So that goes in with their improving the world. And under communication, that could also go with the team. You might see some teamwork and fun during that while they're doing that. Because if they ask about deciding on the style of the presentation, how they gave the presentation could go in with the fun core value. Under robot design, under identify, I think that could also go into teamwork, especially if they use one of the questions that says, how do you make sure everyone on your team develop their building and coding skills? Well, that definitely falls into teamwork, and into inclusion. Create falls under the innovation core value, could be looked at that. And iterate, the innovation could be during that, because you're asking them to describe your different codes and describe the different ways the robot got better. So you're innovating, you're using your creativity and persistence to keep going, making your robot and your coding better. And under communicate, once again, teamwork, especially if they talk about how did you ensure every team member was involved. And those are also, as we said, this is a script that is given, that was put out by FIRST. We do not ask our judges to follow a script. We ask them to ask questions based on the rubric. So that's why I think it's a good idea to talk about at the beginning of the day, what questions they might ask, so that you might know what to expect. But then at the end of the session, if there was something that wasn't covered, you might want to go back to this script and get at one of the core values that may not have been covered in the questions that were asked by the other judges. So are there any questions in regards to core values? It's going to be very different. If you have done it in the past, it's going to be a lot of observation. But as Barb stated, last year or the year before, when they changed the design and programming judging, and they weren't going to use a table anymore, I went in to observe how this was going to work. And as I sat there, I really could go through, I had my core values judging sheet with me, and I realized that I could have answered many of the judging areas on core values while I was observing. And I didn't ask any questions during the session because obviously I was just an observer in the room. But I found it was very doable. And so I actually am very, very excited about this new way of judging core values. I'm not so excited about the virtual part of it. Any questions? Ooh. Everybody's very quiet. Now let's see. We have Leslie. Have you done core values before?
Yes, that's
Yes.
primarily what I've judged.
Okay. Any comments about how you feel it might be different or?
No, I think you covered it good, that even if you're not able to ask a lot of questions, you can certainly see the dynamic of the team and how they're interacting with each other. And I think the other judges will probably be able to ask questions that you can judge on.
Okay. Anybody else? Well, okay. Then I guess that's the end of my, your screen sharing. I can stop sharing the screen. If there aren't any other questions, then I guess our breakout session is done, Barb, and we can go back to the main.
Right. You can all just return to the main room.
Oh, so we leave this room?
Right.
Oops.
I told everyone they had about 5 minutes, so you may be there for a little bit. So just hang tight.
I forgot to stop the recording.
That's okay.
Oh, okay. All right.
Can I ask one quick question?
Oh, sure.
When you said about sharing the rubrics with the team, do you mean like the chicken scratch ones that we're gonna some of us are gonna be writing on and then scanning in later, or do you just mean the 12.1s? that
No,
we're filling out?
the one that you're filling out where you type in the comments, that's what will get shared with the teams.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I figured, but just wanted to
It's like-
double check.
Right, right.
That's
So
the
like,
official, that's the
yeah.
official one.
like,
Okay.
like when we do in the past, the official document
Mhm.
will go back to the team.
Okay, so we don't have to do anything with our chicken scratch ones.
Right.
No, I
Right.
assume we can just, yeah, because we don't have any place to turn those in either. I assume we
Right.
can just recycle them. Or what,
We'll
or do you guys, does high tech kids want to think about that?
we'll have to think about that because I mean, typically, well, first off, we don't want them showing up in the trash can at a tournament because the team might, happen across them.
Right.
But we'll have to talk about whether we want you to send them to us or not. Probably not, I'm thinking.
Mhm.
We'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.